Welcome everybody to ELPCO, as Jason said. ELPCO is a community council that direct feeds to our city council. And I guess I'll first start by introducing Darren Mono, our city council, who's on with us tonight, and thanks for being here. And I'll also introduce the board of ELPCO, and at least I'll read through all of them and make sure to point out the ones that are on. Jason Stevenson is our co-chair and conducting this meeting as well. Daryl High, I don't see him on. But
he is stuck in Idaho. He told me he's trying to get better Wi-Fi, so hopefully we'll see him soon.
At some point. So he's our other co-chair. My name is Jeff Larson. I'm the East Emerson neighborhood representative, and we also have Brad Shoup on, the West Emerson a neighborhood representative. We have, it looks like, Rebecca Hubert, William Huff, who are the Gilmer Park neighborhood representatives. And then we have, you see Andrew Stone. Yes, Andrew Stone is on as well. He is, I always forget the name of his neighborhood, but it's the
East Liberty Park.
East Liberty Park, yeah, neighborhood rep. And I don't see Christina Robb is also on the board. They're West of East neighborhood chair. And then we also have Judy Short, who is on tonight. She is our land use advisor for the board. And our other land use advisor, I don't see him on, Dave Richards. And I also wanted to welcome Detective Meinzer, who is on, or I'm sure I'll butcher your official title, so when you present later on, you can reinforce exactly what we're supposed to call you these days. And also with us tonight is Mohammed Bad, who is going to be talking about the Salt Lake School Board and recent events and happenings there. He's our District 5 representative on the school board, and we're happy to have him as well. Nancy Phillip is our other board member who I failed to mention, our 9th and 9th business liaison. So with that, I turn the time back over to Jason if you're ready, and we can get into our agenda.
Thanks, Jeff, for helping with that introduction. Our board is getting bigger. And in fact, we hope to add 2 new members by the end of this meeting, fulfilling our pledge at the end of last year to add 2 at-large members. We've done some interviews and selected 2 outstanding candidates that we hope to introduce at the new business section of the meeting at the end of the meeting. And hopefully they'll be able to join us for that. So stay tuned for that. And then you'll have even more introductions next time, Jeff, as we go around the board. We've got a great packed agenda. We have some very, influential and speakers who are right in the midst of a lot of things going on, whether it's Salt Lake City Council or the Salt Lake City School Board, lots of announcements and news coming out. But before we get to them, we always check in with the Salt Lake City Police Department and Detective Nathan Meinzer, who is our new Liberty Division Community Intelligence Officer, I think something like that. Sounds extremely impressive, and I hope you get a cool car at least for that. But give us an update if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a mouthful to say it, but it's actually the Liberty Division Community Liaison Officer. I just call it, I'm just a guy just trying to work for the neighborhood. So yeah, I am new. This is, I believe, our second meeting together, right? So I was sent some questions, and I actually also, I went into our stats over the last month. So today I pulled the stats from February 1st to February 24th, and I specifically chose just your community council area. So instead of giving you a whole District 5 overview, I wanted to kind of talk about your specific neighborhood. So first, I'll kind of go over the questions that I was kind of sent that we're kind of interested in getting updates on, and I'll do my best to answer them. I can't answer all of them completely because I'm just not the right person, but I'll try and do my best. So one of the questions was an update for staffing and patrol increases for Salt Lake City Police Department. So currently we have 2 academies going on right now. One academy has 8 officers that they'll be entering FTO at the end of March. And we had our second academy start this week. The last number that I had been given was 28 officers. Well, 28 folks will be in that academy, and hopefully they can all make it through and get into FTO. Tonight, we did have a neighborhood watch meeting for District 5, 6, and 7 to kind of explain what neighborhood watch is and the intent behind it. And that was another question that was asked, is to give a brief update about that. And the main takeaway point from that meeting is neighborhood watches now are not what they used to be. We're not advocating for folks to go out and do patrols, go out and make contact with individuals. It's more focused along the lines of CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And what that means is you're trying to create more buy-in and trying to create a tighter knit community, because that actually can help in reducing specific crimes, like for instance, property crimes. So if you have people that are coming through and they're pulling door handles, which is one problem that we do have in our neighborhood here, it's more that neighbors, if they happen to be looking outside, they can see and go, oh, I don't recognize this person. And you're looking at a specific behavior of, oh, okay, that person's looking into car windows, they're trying door handles. And then that's when you'll call us and tell us the behavior, because that's what we're looking for, is the behavior. Another big part of that is if you go on vacation and you need your mail checked or picked up, or your newspaper, or if you happen to leave your garage door open, that's the best part about having a close-knit neighborhood, is your neighbor can say, hey, I noticed someone came by your house today and it was around 2 o'clock. Were you expecting anybody? And they can be like, no, I'm going to hurry and check my house. Things like that. Thank you, Tim, for go ahead and putting that in the chat. So to create neighborhood watches, it's in the chat. You'll contact Detective Greg Wilking. He is our representative who manages those. So all in all, it's all about close neighborhood interaction and that tight-knit community. So number 3 is how can residents prevent crime when it comes to the warmer weather in springtime? So I actually did send out to all of our community council chairs. I had been working with Darren Mono and Tim Cosgrove, and also on our community action team, we do talk about long-term issues. And so this is kind of a culmination of all those different things on how we have created 10 tips on how citizens can kind of help reduce crime in your neighborhood. I won't go through all of them just in interest of time, but it kind of goes through and it talks about one of the CPTED principles is natural surveillance, which talks about having good lighting, having well-groomed bushes, being able to see well from your windows and not having bushes that are blocking or allowing someone to hide behind them. Another thing is always creating a habit to make sure that you check your car for valuables, for cords, phone cords, things like that. A big thing is your remote control clicker. And another thing is not to leave your car running and warming up. That is one of the easiest ways to get your car stolen right now. Another thing is always keep your garage door closed unless you're immediately in it. I know a lot of people like to do home improvement projects. My dad was a contractor and our garage was open all the time. And I don't know if anything was stolen, but I would be highly surprised if we did not have things stolen. That is one thing where we have criminals out there right now. They're going and checking every little door handle they can. They're looking for that opportunity. And if they see a garage door open with no one inside of it or immediately there, what a great opportunity to walk in and just take whatever they can, whether you have bikes hanging in there, or whether you have camping gear. There's lots of stuff that we all keep in our garages that is kind of valuable and is easy to take. Another thing, a big point, is creating a neighborhood watch group. That is one big thing that does help reduce crime and helps get us the information of suspicious activity in the neighborhoods. Another one of the points is to report all suspicious behavior to us. One thing that we're dealing with right now is underreporting. So we're having people think, oh, this isn't that big of an issue. The cops are really busy. They're understaffed. I'm not going to bother them with it. And that actually hurts us all more than we would like. We need to be able to see how badly we're failing and where we're failing to be able to identify that as a problem and work on the solution. So please always call and report crime as you see it. So I'll go ahead and jump on to the next one. And this is one of the hard ones, is a summary of police reform and policy changes that have been implemented since last summer. There is quite a grand number. I met with my division commander today to say, can we really get a list of all that stuff together? And it's quite extensive. And I think that would probably be someone else that would be able to answer that question better than I could. But just some quick notes. I know right now there's a lot of people interested in our crisis intervention team response. So right now our department is working on getting all of our officers either recertified or certified in our crisis intervention. So when I went through the academy, we went all the way through the crisis intervention school. It was a week-long academy that we went to for that, and we're required to do certifications. I believe it's every 2 years to stay current in that. And I actually had met, I believe it was last week, with our disability rights group that's local here. And we kind of talked about some issues that were going on and what their concerns were. And I got them in touch with our crisis intervention team sergeant. And so I'm hoping that they can kind of help work on, making things better for everybody. Another hot ticket item, I guess you could say, is our canine program. So right now I'm being told it's suspended for now. And we don't have any future info on that. Obviously we're waiting to see the results of the investigations. But those are two things I can talk about right now. And then there were two citizen questions that should be answered. So car prowls, not beside leaving valuables in your vehicle, what can you do to help police other than just calling us, and how to avoid them? So obviously, a lot of people say, oh, just don't leave anything valuable in your vehicle. So even if you leave garbage in your vehicle, that is an indicator to criminals that there could potentially be more in there, especially phone cords. And you'd be surprised how just that alone in and of itself can be a flag to those people. And we are stretched thin right now, but it's very important that even if your car gets rummaged through, to call and report it. And if you don't think that it's worthwhile, report it online. There's many options to do this. And I think that the answers to that is to what more can you do is that list of things, the 10 things that you can do to help reduce crime. And I actually did include some flyers that we have. And there is one that specifically relates to car prowls and kind of what you can do to kind of help yourself. Let me go ahead and pull that one up real fast, and I can maybe talk about some of the quick little bullet points that it has. So on our flyer, it has one of the points is talking about hiding your valuables. So if you do have to leave things in your car, you don't want anything to be visible. Like I said, whether it's trash or phone cords, even that can be an indicator. Number two is always keep your car visible. If you have a detached garage and you don't park your car inside, you want to have lighting out there. If it's well lit, that helps with the psychology of a criminal going and they're looking for easy opportunities. And if they see a car that's well lit and it's well visible, there's not trees to hide behind or anything like that, or shadows, that is definitely a deterrent. However, keep in mind, there are criminals that will not be deterred by anything you do. So there's two different kinds of criminals, if not more. Another thing is it kind of talks about making burglaries difficult. And that talks about more specifically with smash and grabs. It talks about making sure that your doors are locked, your windows are up, activating your security system. It even goes on to talk about potentially using tinting in your windows. And then another one talks about don't leave your remote control to your garage, your clicker, or spare keys in your car. That is actually a big thing. If you leave your clicker in your car, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to look in your glove box and they're going to get your registration, which tells them your address. So where are they going to come back to next week? So it's always good to try and not leave those things in your car if you can. And then lastly, it talks about trusting your instincts. And that's a big thing. I mean, if you look at where you park your car and you're like, this kind of just looks too dark, or, hey, I feel like I'm kind of vulnerable here. That's a great indicator to say, you know what, maybe let's try and find somewhere else to park. Like my complex that I live in, I know that our public parking is terribly lit. And it probably has a foot candle of less than 1 with all the cars. And so it's just completely dark over there. And I never tell anyone to park over there. I think that it is just so dangerous. And I actually have reached out to our HOA to try and say, hey, you do not have adequate lighting. And that is going to be a great key factor for criminals coming through. They'll say, hey, that is a treasure trove. I could be in there and no one would even know. So if you guys have areas that you identify that have poor lighting and you think that it might be controlled by the city, reach out to me and we can try and work on getting a solution there. Yes, you're more than welcome to ask questions. And then lastly, one other question that was brought up was, are there any programs being developed for addressing the thieves that follow delivery trucks? So that has happened in the past where people have followed delivery trucks. But I think it's kind of more handled on a case-by-case basis, as it's not something that's all the time kind of thing. It's not like every delivery truck out there has a thief behind it following it. So when we do have cases where we're able to get like people's doorbell cameras that show a delivery truck going by, doing a delivery, and then all of a sudden you have a car pull up and come and take a package, that is helpful when you share it. So last year I had in District 6, we had over 88 cases of porch thefts that, because of citizens' help and doorbell cameras, we were able to tie 88 of those cases together, and we were able to get federal charges on the suspects. So they're gone. They don't get to go to our little local jail here and get back out. So that is a success story for that. So to kind of talk on the increase in casing homes and vehicles in our area. So last week, our division commander, we got the most up-to-date stats, and we had a meeting today as well with our patrol sergeants and lieutenants to give them the most up-to-date information. So they pass that information along to our patrol guys. So they have those up-to-date maps. They have when it is the busiest for car prowls of the hour per day and then day per week. And I have that information as well, but that way they can kind of think, okay, if I am not on a call and I'm writing reports and I'm having lots of car prowls in this neighborhood over here, I'm going to go park over there and write my report. So that is kind of one way that we're trying to be a visible presence to deter. And then if things do get too bad, we do end up creating operations to try and work on those. So that's kind of where I mentioned the case-by-case basis. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the stats. So I pulled, instead of just going over the general whole entire district, I pulled specifically for your neighborhood, the ELPCO community. So I pulled from February 1st to February 24th. And I went through and I've got them kind of stacked out for the different offense types. So they're called type 1 and type 2 crimes, and then part 1 and part 2, and then there's the all other. So when I put those that way, there's a lot of them are just kind of single incidents. So you have some domestic violence, and that's not something that we can really deter from. But we do have a number that is very interesting here, and that's the car prowls. So in that time period, there were 12 car prowls that occurred, and then there were 4 thefts from yards. So this is something that is kind of like what I was talking about, where we're tracking that and we're giving the heat maps to officers. This is where it's very important that all of the crime is reported that you have with car prowls. Even if your car is just rummaged through and you don't think anything is stolen, it's important that you report that to us. And if you don't want to talk to an officer and you're like, it's maybe not important enough, please go online and report it, because that is very helpful to us, because our comp stat folks, they go off of stats, and that's where we create those hotspot maps. So that's important. So right now our prowls are looking fairly high in your neighborhood. So I kind of want to pay a closer eye on that to see if there's anything else we can do for that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is what surprised me is there were 7 assaults. And I have to go through and pull up each of those addresses to see if there's any relation at all between any of them, or if they're random, or if it could be, for instance, maybe some homeless camps or what. So I don't have an answer as to why that is high right now. Or it could be school fights, things like that. But I'm going to look into that because I don't like that number being so high. If this was my neighborhood where I lived, I'd be like, hey, that's 7 assaults in, 3-week period. What's going on there? And then one last stat that I did want to bring up is we had 4 calls for service where reports were written, which means that it was good information of suspicious activity being reported. So that typically is when you guys notice something where someone is out checking door handles, things like that. That is where you have called in and given us enough information that it was a credible source that officers wrote reports 4 different times. That is, I can't stress enough, so very helpful. So thank you for those folks that did call those in. Like I said, that is just amazing. And then real fast, the hot spot that I've noticed for a lot of the car prowls, 9th and 9th, and the little Smiths right there. So that is one of my bright spots on my little heat map. So I think it's probably because we have lots of cars in and around the neighborhood there. Another location that I'm tracking is about 15th South and 11th East. And then the last one is around Kensington and 9th East. So those are kind of my 3 hot spots right now that I'm trying to pay attention to and trying to get some relief to. And that is what I have for an update. And I'm happy to answer any questions or go into more detail if anyone needs.
Great, thank you, Detective Meinzer. I don't see any questions coming through on the chat. The chat is a little restricted, as are some of the video settings on this call because of disruptions last month. But you can put the chat in, it'll come to the host, and then we can relay that to any of the speakers. So please do use the chat if you do have some questions. I had one recommendation about the garage door openers or garage door clickers. That's kind of hard if you don't have that in your car. You got to get out. So what I do is I put it in a vomit bag, like a throw up bag. And then I put like a squeaky or like a squishy baby toy in there. And then I put it underneath and I just put it kind of down by the floor on the seat and figure someone's going to touch it. It's going to be a little bit squishy. They're going to not go any further. So that's,
I love that. That is awesome, actually.
Otherwise, it's a big inconvenience. But maybe I should patent that. Boy, I should.
And I have seen fobs that you can put on your keychain for your garages. So that is kind of one of those alternative options.
That's actually a lot smarter. Cool. Any other questions for Detective Meinzer? Looks like there was a question from Rebecca Huber and William Huff from Gilmer Park area. They asked if there have been any reports of thieves using scanners to pick up the key fob or garage door codes. That's something I've read a little bit about, but never seen any direct evidence.
And it was last year that there had been a little bit of an increase in that. I don't remember specifically where that was an issue, but I've not heard a lot about that either. So I unfortunately don't have any cases where it's been high. And that is actually something that would absolutely be brought up by our CompStat unit. So every other week we have a meeting with our division commanders and our chiefs, and our CompStat unit, they're the ones that go over all the stats of all the cases that come in. And they do go into depth on, where things are similar. So something like that is definitely something that would be a trigger that would show up, and we would look into that and work on that. One thing that you can do to save yourself from that issue is what's called a Faraday cage. So my wallet is it's metal, and I put my cards in here. And what it does is it does not allow those scanners to go through. So when I fob into the building, I have to actually pull my card out because the Faraday cage does not let the signal go through. So if someone were to try and scan my wallet by walking by, it's not going to work. However, keep in mind, if there are the scanners on like an ATM or something like that, where you do take your card out, that is where you would be vulnerable. And I will put my information back in the chat for everybody.
Great, thanks, Detective Meinzer. Also, your Detective Meinzer's email and phone numbers are on the back of the agenda with a lot of other contact information. Looks like those were all the questions we've got. Thank you, and especially for those detailed stats. That's very helpful to know that we're focusing now specifically on the ELPCO area and not just the broader.
That was me wanting to see a more personal approach to it. So I'm given the stats by our comp stat for the whole area, but I want to be able to give that unique view to you guys, because I know last meeting it was mentioned that or the message that I felt was that you guys kind of have a little bit different than everywhere else in District 5. And so I kind of wanted to focus specifically on your area. So.
Great, well, thank you for that. We are gonna change our agenda a little bit. We're gonna move the pie fight video to the end of the meeting, because dessert comes after the end of everything, right? You can't have dessert first. So we'll do that, but because Mohammed Bayed has to leave at 8, we're gonna jump first to Council Member Darren Mono, and then Mohammed Bayed from the Salt Lake City School District to kind of get their perspectives on those two elected bodies, what's going on. Jeff is going to be handling the Salt Lake City Schools section of this, but I'll start off first with Darren, if you wouldn't mind giving us an update about what's going on at the council. And I believe I sent you a couple quick questions that have come up from the community.
Yes, thanks, Jason. I'm Darren Mono, the Salt Lake City Council representative for District 5. Jason asked me a few questions, so I'll try and go through those, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up in the chat. I know those are going to you, Jason, right? And so you can relay anything to me. The first one was giving an update on the affordable housing discussion that we had on February 16th. So at that meeting, the mayor gave us a few statistics, and so I'll share some of those. Between 2016 and 2020, the city has invested more than $64 million in affordable housing, and that's resulting in 2,539 housing units. That's all different types of housing units that the city has participated in. Another number is that in 2020, we made available $3 million in rent assistance and $250,000 in mortgage assistance. And recently we awarded $7.1 million from the Federal CARES Act funding, and that went to some of that went to the housing programs, others went to food stability and other kinds of pandemic assistance. And then the mayor reported to us at that meeting that an additional $6 million in federal treasury funding is going to be available soon for pandemic-related rental and utility assistance in Salt Lake City. I don't know that we have details about exactly what programs that will come through, but we've done a lot in creating affordable housing units, both incentivizing developers, helping with low interest loans for that, but also just actually helping people pay their rent, their back rent, and a little bit mortgage for their mortgages. I think there's some appetite to help mortgage assistance a little bit more. So that was part of that discussion. Jason, was that covering what you wanted, or was there a different discussion?
No, that's good. It was definitely a good update about what's going on. There might be some questions that come in a little bit later about housing, but I know there's a couple other topics you wanted to get to.
Yeah, you had asked about the rights of way. So this is talking about the 5G cell phone towers. We considered an ordinance that would require anyone that's doing work in a public right of way to notify the adjacent neighbors. The discussion was a little bit circular and got a little bit technical, but basically right now the ordinance as proposed by administration would only be for above ground work. So that accepts all of Google Fiber, which we all know, I think they've gone all through ELPCO as much as they have through Ballpark. But we all know that they did not provide very good notice to the residents. So that was brought up, I believe every council member, I can only speak for myself, but I believe every other council member also agreed that this ordinance needed to extend to below ground work. Part of the issue that the building department was saying was that the proposal was for verified notice. So that means if there's that 5G tower going up, the Verizon or whoever the cell carrier would have to go and provide notice to the homeowner, and then a city employee would have to go verify that notice, which for me, that's not a huge priority, that verification aspect. It's more that we need to have a better ordinance that some type of notice with some reasonable specificity happens. And right now there's a notice requirement, but it's really loose, and it basically can be like a sign on a cone on the side of your road the day before. So, which is not good enough. I see some shaking heads and I agree with them. That's not good enough. And so we pushed that back to the administration and said, no, this isn't good enough. We want a little bit more, and we wanted to include the underground. And so we're waiting to see how that will all sort of get settled. I'm not interested in hiring another person with taxpayer dollars to go around and follow Google Fiber around and make sure that they're actually doing that. I'm more interested in finding a way that we can just say Google Fiber has to track when they put a door hanger on your door, what the information said, take a photo of it, and then if a neighbor were to complain that they didn't get notice, Google Fiber would have to prove that they did get notice by whatever photo they took. Every time Amazon drops a package off on all of our doors, they take a picture of it and they log it. So it seems like it could be something as simple as that. So we're kind of working out what that might be, but the intention is to get better notice ahead of time with more specificity. Happy to answer any questions, or if you have specific feedback, if you do think it needs to be a verified notice and it's worth hiring a full-time city employee to do that, let me know, and that may be something that other people feel as well. Another thing from that council meeting was the off-street parking ordinance revision. This is something that I've been following for a really long time. We discussed it multiple times while I was on planning commission, and it wasn't even new then. So this has been in the works for a very long time. The intention is to simplify and kind of modernize our off-street parking ordinance. It will take away some of the exceptions and some of the sort of special calculations that people can do. And then it also, based on things like proximity to transit, proximity to other amenities, changes what your off-street parking requirements are. Right now that's done just by zone. So the zones that are intended for close to transit have a lower parking requirement. That already happens in our code, but this just makes it a much more simple sort of a whole-scale change. I could talk for days about what the specific changes are. I just popped in the chat. Hopefully that's visible to everyone. The link to the planning department's website where they show the current ordinance and the proposed ordinance. So that's maybe the best way to get more detailed information. In general, this would slightly reduce the parking requirement in some locations. It would greatly reduce the parking requirement in others, and it would increase the parking requirements in some. And that's just because it's so complex and it's citywide. In general, it's an overall reduction. Yeah, gee, it's really long. In general, it's an overall reduction, but it depends on your closeness to transit and things like that. I have a couple concerns about it. One that I raised was that like the whole west side of District 5, which is close to transit, is in what's called the general context, which is the highest parking requirement. That's actually more parking required in a lot of cases than is currently required. The planning department's response was that they're planning to rezone that whole area anyway, so it would change into a different zone. But to me, that's a little bit tenuous because I don't know what that change will look like yet. So that was one concern. A lot of other concerns were brought up. So the decision was to move that to public hearing and then go back to work session, which is a little different. And I'm not sure exactly why we ended up that way. But the chair, Fowler, wanted us to have an opportunity to hear from the residents, and then we'll go back and discuss what we heard and the concerns that council members brought up. So I think that one's gonna take a little bit of time for us to iron out. It's so big that it's worth the time that's being taken. The public hearing is scheduled for March 16th at 7 p.m. and tentative council action is Tuesday, April 6th, but again, I don't believe that we'll be taking action on April 6th because there are enough concerns just that we've raised and also that I've heard from constituents that I think that it's going to take some time for us to iron some of those things out. So if you have thoughts on that, please reach out. Let's see. There was a third one. Oh, no, I got to all of the three. Okay, and the last one was ranked choice voting in the municipal election. So we are looking at, I think it's probably going to happen is my thoughts on where it is. There's a few bills on the Hill that all change what ranked choice voting can, how it can look in different ways. But we had at our meeting the city recorder from Vineyard, Utah, I believe, and we also had Sherry Swenson, and they talked about it. Utah County had two cities that did it last municipal cycle, Vineyard and Payson, and they both reported that it was successful. Much smaller cities, obviously, than Salt Lake City. And we talked to Sherry Swenson about the logistics of it. It sounds like there's some complications. It takes a little bit longer to what she called adjudicate a ballot. So if someone kind of crossed out a number and changed it, then that has to be done by a person. The machine won't be able to read that. So that will be a little bit more time, and it might take a little longer to get the results because of that, and a little bit more cost to run the election. However, it would completely eliminate the primary. So the cost of running one slightly more complicated election rather than two more simple ones is still less. So I think that it's a good idea for the city. It's something that we've been asked to do by a lot of people, and there's a lot of energy around that. The idea is that it would simplify the process overall. It may make it easier for more people to join the election, which I think is a good thing. I think we should have as many people that are interested in running be able to run. What it doesn't do is have that midpoint where it narrows the field down to two, and then two people can continue to campaign. So I don't know. I think in general, sort of national beliefs about it and research is that it generally reduces the requirement for campaign spending. But if there's more people campaigning till the end, it might overall increase it. But the idea is that the idea is that you kind of rank from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, where you want people. And then if you're, if somebody gets more than 50% of the first choice votes, they win. But if not, then they take out the lowest person and award those votes to those people's second choice, and just keep going until someone has more than 50%. There's a couple other ways to do it. The star method and the approval method, which are more complicated or just different, and we don't completely understand them. Apparently the star method, the county's equipment won't do, but the approval method it would. So there's a lot to be figured out. We have basically until the beginning of April to decide what we're going to do and what it'll look like. And then that'll be in place for this year. So I think the council, most of the council's on board. I think it's probably a good idea. And I don't see any reason not to do it. But if you guys, if the community reaches out to me and tells me it's a bad idea, I'm also not really completely set on it either. So I'm totally open to feedback on that. I think I caught everything, Jason.
Yeah, I gave you a 4-part quiz. Thank you, Darren, for going through that. I think the one thing I've heard about ranked choice voting as well is that it makes candidates be nicer to each other. Because if you come across as a negative campaigner, you're going to turn people off, and they're not going to perhaps rank you as their second or third choice, which could be decisive in terms of getting up to the final couple of votes. So
yeah. And if there's multiple candidates that have similar viewpoints, you don't split the vote that way, like you traditionally would. So if someone was voting for candidate A, but they also liked candidate B, and they're very similar, traditionally they would split the vote, and candidate C might win even though more people agreed with A or B. So so it should be a more fair system, but that's what we believe.
I don't see any questions coming through on the chat, but we did have one question that came through before the meeting. And that is, occasionally the city council will ask developers to put in development agreements to promise to do things with the developments, like Telegraph Exchange Lofts, the condo development on 800 East. The developer there said he'd put in a couple of market rate, or not market rate, but sort of a lower income or subsidized housing units there. I know Phil Winston has offered to do a couple of things as well for some of the developments also in the 9th and 9th area. The question was, who enforces those development agreements? Who makes sure that those apartments or condos are being rented at a reduced rate, or that the different provisions are followed through? Is that the council? Is that the planning commission? Or should it be community councils like us to do that?
This is one of the reasons why Nick Norris from planning does not like us to do them, because it's a little confusing who does it. I think the answer would be typically planning department, but some things may not really be planning issues. They may be, typically the development agreement has to do with things like height or setbacks or landscaping or things like that. And so those would be planning issues. I'm not exactly sure who would do the affordable housing. I think it would probably still be planning, but I could see where we might put that into like RDA to do that, because RDA deals, or HAND, because they deal a lot with affordable housing. But to your question, Jason, I think also, yes, it would behoove the community council to pay attention to what's going on. And if the developer starts building something that is, you believe, outside of what they agreed to, a lot of those things, and this isn't just with development agreements, but a lot of things within the city, we don't have the bandwidth to actively sort of walk around and check. It's more if people report that there are problems, then that'll get taken care of that way. So yes, I think for things where we as the council have said, okay, we'll do this, but we want all of these community benefits, it should be the community, it should be me, it should be the administration making sure that happens. But I think the person that actually checks, like when the building permit is issued and the certificate of occupancy, would be the planning department. That was a long answer to your question.
Any other questions for Councilmember Amano from our board members or from the audience? I appreciate you walking through that. And what we try to do is send questions to our speakers ahead of time so that they can be prepared and bring some resources or numbers or even some links. So if you do have questions, let ELPCO know. You can email elpcoslc@gmail.com if you see some people on the agenda that you want to ask some questions to. And get real solid answers instead of we'll get back to you. Feel free to do that. We like to kind of short circuit the process and have good, robust conversations. So thank you, Council Member, for doing that. With no further questions, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff to introduce Mohammed and take the conversation into education.
Thanks, Jason. Again, I want to welcome Mohammed to our meeting tonight and also welcome him to the school board, being recently elected this last election cycle and thrown right into the fire in the Salt Lake School Board in time of lots of decisions to be made. So excited to have Mohammed in that position and here again with us tonight. So maybe first of all, briefly talk about, what it's been like to start. And then in the news, we recently got a new superintendent. So can you tell us a little bit about what the board liked about him and what you feel like he'll bring to the role, and a little bit more about him?
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see a few faces. It's so good to see you all. And I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope everyone is being safe as well. So definitely it has been quite a rock and roll ride. We got sworn in on the 5th, and that first night we had actually we were done at midnight. We started 5:30 p.m. we were done at midnight. I was like, whoa, okay, that's great. But it's been a great journey, to be honest with you. I've learned so much from the community, from teachers, students, parents, and I myself, as a parent, have learned a lot. And so learning even how to deal with politicians out there. It's the fun part, but in regards to the question about the new superintendent, Dr. Gadsden, he's just like what we were looking for. When I say what we are looking for, but let me talk about it this way. So about his characteristics. So he is a family man, hands down. I mean, he was here in Salt Lake going through the interviews, and his family all the way from Florida, Georgia, Atlanta, California, they're all texting him, telling him he's doing good job. So you can imagine the pressure on that. So he is really, really, every time he talks about his experiences with his mother, grandmother, and his love for his family and kids. And it just like speaks the quality. And also, I did notice he was very, very honest and forthcoming. When we ask him a question that, let's say, something that the agency have found for us, we ask him, and he comes and he gives us details of what's going on exactly to explain to us why that happened and why is that there. Also, he is just full of curiosity. When you walk with him at school, and he's just like, oh, what is that? What are those students learning? Oh, tell me a little more about that, And we want someone who really shows some form of curiosity and also very empathetic, not sympathetic, but very, very empathetic. So he has come from his grandmother was illiterate, or I would say in this case, can't read or write. He was the one who was reading letters for her. And, and she looks at him and she's always saying, one day you're going to be a teacher. And him, in his mind, he's just thinking he's going to be a big shot in the corporate world. And nevertheless, there he is. And so that's from his own characteristic, as you see. And in regards to professional qualification, I mean, he really he's been in the field of education for years and years and years, very well experienced. I mean, like his BA in business economics, his master's and doctorates, from Washington State University, and he was an assistant principal, he was a principal, he was a district director for secondary education, and so on. So there are so many things he has done. So these are all things that we all know about. But at the same time, we're not just looking at the credentials. We were looking for someone who will actually represent the challenges that our state is dealing with, especially our district. We want someone who will be there, not letting Salt Lake City School District be like a doormat. You just wipe your feet and move on with it. We want someone who can stand there and actually agree with us with the fact that certain policies that have been set there are not actually, just political cheap shots, basically. And that's what I got from him. And on top of that, he's really, really very, very committed to equity. And that's something, that has been popping out, especially during pandemic, and also during the, post the death of George Floyd. I mean, so many things have come up. And what I've noticed from him, he is a person who will like take what we have and make sure it is divided equally but not just what we have, but also find better curriculums that will always benefit the students. And what I like too, one thing that everyone here is gonna like is his type of leadership. He's not like, top down. If there is an issue, he's gonna come down here, work with the families, with students. And that's like something that just like, that's what we need. We need someone who is humble to come down. And that's something that we did notice, from Dr. Gadsden. And so, yeah, so hopefully that answered the question. And also there was the other question was about my feedback on, the school getting back, my personal feedback, my feedback as a school board member. Well, it is great to see actually that science across the world is uniting behind the low transmission rate, within schools. And it just in reality doesn't make sense. The more time I spend, within the board and the more information I find out, then you start to wonder, should we close this school? Should we open this or what? One thing that was really, really hard in the beginning, of course, when we had the three legislators, not even from Salt Lake City, who decided to twist our arms and threaten the district with one, taking away bonuses for teachers, and two, threatening the district with a voucher program. And so what a voucher is basically is like another form of killing the public school. And what was going to happen is, let's say, for example, the students whose parents want them to go to school in person, but they could not because the district still closed. And they decided they want to send their kids to private school. Okay. And the plan was, if that kid, for each kid that goes to a private school, let's say their tuition is $20,000, guess what? That $20,000 will have to come out of the district school fund, which we do not have and we cannot afford. It was basically going to cost us about $2.5 million at the end. So we had to come to a compromise there. But overall, looking at a positive part of it now is that positivity rate within Salt Lake, school district, we're at like a little over 5%, which is great. Teachers and staff are getting like fully vaccinated. Right now they are done with round one, and we are like actually focusing on making sure everyone gets their second round of vaccination. And I sent you, Jason and Jeff, I did send you guys an email with the Q&A. And those questions actually basically, if we were to sum up everything, if you know any teachers or any staff who are within the school district and they are about to have their second dose of vaccination, please ask them not to miss it, period. By all means. You saw in all those answers is basically, well, you're out of luck. If you miss it, I don't know what else to do. So that's the challenge we have. So those Q&A would be so fantastic when you get a chance, share them with everyone. That would be fantastic. And you can also access them through my Facebook page, Mohammed for Salt Lake City School Board. You'll be able to see there. They're going to be posted tomorrow morning. And so the pros that we have seen from getting back to school are as follows. So we do see majority of the kids are more energetic, happy to see their friends, happy to share some germs with each other. They come home sniffing a little bit. We haven't seen that for a while. But overall, the morale of the kids is much better. And even the parents, they seem to finally, sigh a bit of a relief. Oh, my goodness, I was stuck with this kid for a whole year. What am I thinking? You know, so trust me, 3. um, and you know, and also we did get a report from principals that students' compliance with the safety standards has been fantastic, really across the board. Also, tardiness has been reduced dramatically. You know, as of right now, this is for middle and high school. Also, student behavior, you know, so it really has been much better. I don't know what it is, but probably, you know, just being stuck home with the parents has they are much more appreciative to school now. And so the one challenge that a lot of schools are dealing with, also the other thing too in regards to COVID cases. As of last week, there was like about 15 cases, but it was spread out. And it was like, you know, this is for high school and middle school, because they were doing test to stay. And that's basically, you know, every student will have to be able to be tested before they can stay at school or so. So it's been fantastic to see that. The other issue we run into within the school is lack of substitute teachers. And it has been like so vividly clear, and it's hard. And there were reasons, there were questions, why? Why is this happening? And based on the information that we were provided by the district, is the fact that one, some of the sub teachers, you know, transferred to other districts, and two, also we have so many teachers who've had, you know, their dose, their second dose, and they got very sick, and you know, we need someone to substitute them, but it's hard to find someone. So there has been so many things out there going on. Basically, if you know anyone who is looking to, you know, generously give their time to sub, that would be fantastic. We really need that in our schools as much as possible, because our teachers have gone through so much. As a matter of fact, you know, being online is a lot more work than actually being in person. That's the kind of challenge the teachers have faced. And, you know, and it's just, yeah, anyone who like gets up and says the lazy way of teaching and stuff like that, trust me, they would regret the day they said that in front of me personally, because, you know, I hold utmost respect to those teachers and the parents as well. So those are the things that's been going on. So we are still going on with the vaccinations. And I know there has been words around whether we should go to 4 days or not. So this is for middle and high school. Again, it is so crazy because I don't understand how these legislators think. I'm still trying to figure it out. These legislators, they are not even in Salt Lake. Their districts are outside of Salt Lake. We came up with an agreement, okay, we're gonna open and we're gonna have a hybrid model, but they should not use the voucher against our schools. That was the agreement. So we opened and everything is fine. We have been open, middle and high school have been open for about what, 2 weeks now? We haven't even like, you know, assessed how things are going. And then a bill right now that's being pushed, it's already gone through the Senate and it's down to the House floor. And the bill's purpose is they want us to be fully open 4 days a week, no hybrid method. I mean, this is like, it's just like, I'm really still trying to wrap my mind around it. If you listen to the last school board meeting, I mean, I handed it down to them. It's non-traditional, but hey, at some point you just need to step out there and let them know, because we want to do our job. But unfortunately, their interference has been actually making it more divisive in our community. But I'm not letting that go down. Everyone in the team knows me. I'm going to say it as is when it comes to politicians interfering with our matters that pertains to our schools. So basically, right now, they are pushing for that. It's going to go to Governor Cox's desk, and we are hoping he's not going to sign that bill until towards the end of March. That will give us a chance to like at least kind of like push it until the beginning of the next term. And then we can say, okay, we can go to 4-day, but we're gonna still request a hybrid measure as well. So that's one of our challenges. And there was also the other question in regards to my take on the bill that's on the floor that would actually, allow the 16 and 17-year-olds vote for school board. And that bill is not just that, but also that bill allows, will allow juniors, not just like, seniors only. So it'll be like from juniors and up, they can actually run for a school board, for a student school board. And so I am for that bill. We need that. The reason is because right now we have an amazing student school board body. She is fantastic. And as a matter of fact, she's the one who's been working on that bill with Joel Briscoe. And, and so that's the bill that's gonna come through. I am for that bill. I'm very happy with it. One, because it actually will allow the chance to share the governance in this case. We're not just gonna like have only, those who've been here in school for a long time to vote, but instead we're gonna have the students, who've been there about a year and a half or so, and they are gonna be able to vote. And not only that, also they're gonna be able to run if they would like to. So, and one thing that we were talking about during our board is actually, is to make sure that people who are going to be voting are, especially when we say like student body presence and so, if they are going to be voting, we want to make sure that they are responsive to the questions, requests, and calls and emails from the board, from student board person. And so, but I am for that bill. I'm very excited about it. There are so many great things out there. We are so excited for Dr. Gadsden to come and join and help us, guide this ship through the storms we face, the nature of being in a conservative state, a liberal city within a conservative state. It's a challenging process. And so we are always the black sheep of every school in the state. But I'm very pleased and I'm very proud to be, serving in this capacity. And if families are sending emails and I'm not responding, I'm not ignoring you. If they were in Arabic, I promise I would have gone through them faster. But in English, you text me, you'll hit a response. Emails, I'm hoping to get in there. Yeah, so I'm not ignoring anyone or so. So please, if you have any questions, go at them.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mohammed. I think I don't think we had any questions. We're happy to have you in that role and happy to have you here tonight. Thanks for giving us some of those details and behind the scenes a little bit with Dr. Gadsden and your insights on the return to school and some of the other things behind the scenes as well, as that's happened. So
Thank
appreciate
you.
them and excited to see some of those things continue and build. So back to you, Jason.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mohammed. I put the links
Thank
to
you.
the two bills that Mohammed referenced in the chat there, so you can check those out. Those are heading through the legislative session, which ends next Friday, a week from tomorrow. Which will be a great relief to many of us who work in those issues. Next, I want to turn it over to Andrew Stone, one of the ELPCO board members for East Liberty Park. And he's going to actually give us a little bit of a surprise presentation, something that we didn't have on the agenda, before running a presentation about the 800 East neighborhood byway. So Andrew's actually going to talk a little bit about Salt Lake City summer camps and a project he's been working on.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to do a quick screen share with everyone. I've put together a spreadsheet of sorts that is listing the summer camps that are currently available or hoping to be available for this coming summer season. Jason said he will have a place for you all to download this if you want this information. Some key things on this to know that University of Utah camps, Club U, the Natural History Museum camp, Red Butte Gardens, they are currently, Club U and Natural History Museum are planning to do online classes for sure. All three of them are waiting until March 1st to hear from the university about whether or not in-person camps will be allowed this summer. So that is still in the works. Believe me, they are. I work with the Club U folks. They are itching at the seams to run in-person camps again, but we have to wait. So once we know more, we should know more by March 15th and be ready to go. Spy Hop, Camp Wildlife with St. John's, the Momentum Climbing Gym, Humane Society of Utah, and Wasatch Kids Camps and Roland Hall Summer Works will be all running camps this summer in person. They have limited numbers depending on the program of how many they will have per group. They all will have masking protocols in place. And right now, Wasatch Kids Camp and Roland Hall are open for enrollment. The others are opening anywhere from March 1st to April 1st. Camp Wildlife is open right now as well. They are almost full. Arte Primero, their website says they're open, but I have not been able to get any details about anything. So I have no details on the spreadsheet for them. And then if you're looking at overnight camps, Camp Tuttle is working on setting us something up for overnight camps. That's still in the works, so there aren't a lot of details on that yet. They will have daytime activities throughout the summer and other activities, and you can find all that information on their website as well. And that is it for the summer camps, unless there's any questions I can answer.
I do know that Tracy Aviary will have a summer camp this year. I apologize, I didn't get the information to you in time, Andrew, but they will have an offering. And I did put a link to the spreadsheet that you worked on in the chat. So we'll be publicizing that because, as Mohammed mentioned, having kids around the house for a year was crazy. Boy, we want to keep them out of the house during the summer too. So we're hoping that these summer camps will come online and we'll be able to, let our kids go off and have a great time in a safe way. So thank you for doing that. We hope this will be a great community resource. And it came about from someone asking us to take a look at it. It's one way that ELPCO tries to kind of do some work to kind of help everybody out in the community. Andrew, you've got the next segment of the agenda, so please continue.
Yes, I want to introduce Laura Handwerker and Jenna, I forgot your last name, Carver, if I believe it is. They're going to be presenting tonight about the 8th East Community Byway, something I'm very excited about because I live on 8th East. They've both been with Salt Lake City, I think, just about 2 years. They both worked on the Stay Safe, Stay Active campaign last summer, where they actually sat on the streets and counted the cars and the people and the bicyclists and everybody who were going up and down the roads. And now they get to continue this project. So it's exciting to hear. So we'll go ahead and let them, without further ado, get started.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for that introduction. As Andrew said, I'm Jenna Carver. I have been with the city for 2 years in March. Prior to that, I was in Salt Lake County for about 20 years, just over 20 years. So familiar with the public, but I have not been to this meeting yet. This is my first time at this meeting, so it's nice meeting you all. As Andrew said, 800 East, stay active, stay safe, stay active street that we implemented last spring in response to COVID to give people an opportunity to recreate, transport themselves on bikes and by walking and maintain social distancing, was really popular on many of the streets, especially on 800 East. We received a lot of positive feedback and a lot of requests to make that permanent. As we were talking about that, we were approached by UDOT. They're also interested in having an alternative for bicycles mainly, but also pedestrians parallel to 700 East, which is a UDOT facility. They'd rather not have bikes on that street. Of course, they can't go on that street, but myself, I wouldn't want to ride my bike down 700 East. So they have actually volunteered to pay for the study that we're doing right now on 800 East. So I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen. I have just a few slides. So they have a couple of consultants that they're paying for, and they're also on the team along with Laura and I, looking at options to make the 800 East stay safe. I'm sorry, I have a really hard time saying this. Stay safe, stay active streets a permanent solution. And I also apologize. I'm used to having two screens, and I don't have one screen right now. So if I seem lost, that's why. So they've engaged township and range. You can see that on the slide here. Wait, are you seeing the slide?
No.
I don't think we're seeing it yet.
Let me try again. I'm used to Microsoft Teams, not Zoom. Share. I am not seeing share screen.
It's in bright green.
Should be at the bottom, very bottom.
It's right there. Okay, sorry. The green was, I was like skipping over it. Okay, are you seeing it now?
Not yet.
Oh, geez.
Unless it's a picture of all of us. You might email that to Andrew or, oh, there we got it. I think it's happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Okay. Now I got that shared. I forgot where it was. Oh yeah. So UDOT is paying for the study. They've engaged township and range to conduct the study, and also Parametrics Engineering is working on it. The project goes from, the study we're looking at right now is a little bit longer than what the Stay Safe, Stay Active Street was. Now, the study now is from, this is the, sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit. This is Salt Lake City Pedestrian Bicycle Master Plan. I just pulled this up to show you that 800 East is a planned neighborhood byway. You can see it there. Zoomed in a little bit more there. So this project is looking at 800 East from 800 South to about 2700 South. We'll probably go a little bit south of there. We haven't exactly decided how far 800 East splits Mill Creek City and Salt Lake City. So we'll have some coordination there at the south end. The Stay Safe, Stay Active Street was at the north end here. Sorry, I'm going to continue. I'm going to pass this on now to Laura to talk about the survey and where we are in the process. And Laura, I'll keep sharing my screen if that's okay, or do you want me to turn it off?
Yeah, no, that works great.
Okay, and you just tell me when to advance.
Yeah, we can go ahead to the next one.
Yeah.
So hopefully all of you are aware that we did conduct a survey about a month prior to the new year, and then it closed, probably the first week of January. We got a good number of responses. We put those signs out all along the project area in the hopes that we would be able to get input from everyone who kind of interacts with the corridor. So even if you didn't live right on the street, you know, if that was the place where you walked or biked, that maybe you would see those signs and participate. And we also pushed it out through our typical community online networks. And the first question on the survey was just, you know, what's your relationship to the corridor? And most people who responded, I don't remember their percentage, but a vast majority either lived directly on 8th East or in the surrounding neighborhood. So a lot of people who are invested in the neighborhood were also able to participate in the survey. Jenny, you can go to the next one. And these 3 dots kind of visually correspond to the number of responses that we got in regards to positivity for support for the byway, kind of making these more permanent changes, feeding off of the success of the open street. So 82% of folks thought that the open street was great. 23% said that there were some issues with the open street, but a lot of people said that, you know, with a more permanent implementation, some of those issues could be resolved, like the A-frame signs fell down a lot, or people would move them, either drivers would move them out of the street, or people would move them kind of directly into the middle of the lane where they were kind of supposed to be going down the middle. So things that could be resolved. And then there were only 5% of survey respondents who didn't like it, kind of said the streets are for cars sort of thing. So a really, really small minority there. Go to the next one. And then asking about moving beyond just the summer's open street and moving into the permanent implementation. Again, a lot of people really wanted to either see the open street come back the way that it was, or to make it permanent or year round. And again, a minority of opinions were to just leave it alone, leave the street as it is. We'll go to the last slide. And so I'll talk about this in a little bit. So there are a few different approaches that you can take to this sort of street transformation. And we wanted to get a sense of what was most important to residents as we move into the design phase. You know, and what we asked, was it most important to slow and redirect vehicles on and off of the street? Was it more important to incorporate some placemaking elements where we treat the street as a neighborhood space, where rather than just being a street that you travel down to get from point A to point B, but rather it becomes this space where you want to spend time and it becomes a real community space? And we heard a lot of really fantastic stories actually through that survey about how people felt like the sense of community really increased over the summer when they had that extra space in the street. People kind of having socially distanced birthday gatherings where they were able to stand apart and sing to a neighbor who was turning 95 or something like that. And we had some residents who did a joint violin and ballet concert in the street. And so just a lot of really positive comments where people were really enthused that they got to know their neighbors better this summer than they ever had in all the years that they've lived in the neighborhood, due to this more welcoming, inviting space. And so that was also ranked as pretty important as we move into the development of this. And then the communicating and connecting, that is kind of making it clear as you're entering the space, either as a driver or a pedestrian or a cyclist, you know, what are the expectations from that space? Is it a shared street? You know, the signs that we had in the summer, we got some very valid criticisms that there was just too much writing. It wasn't really clear that it was okay for pedestrians to be in the street, which led to some tension between motorists and pedestrians, those sorts of things. So just moving forward, we want to make it really clear that this is a shared space, if that's what it ends up being, and that motorists need to be aware of people being in the street, things of that nature. So that was the basic takeaway from the survey, just that there's a lot of support for this concept. We're excited about the opportunity as a city to kind of feed off of that momentum from the safe, active streets, and hopefully create a better street for the entire neighborhood to gather on and enjoy and feel safe. And so moving forward, the design team is going to be creating some design alternatives for the street. And Jenna, I don't know if you recall exactly what the timeline is on that, but maybe a couple more months, and once those are out there, then we'll have another comment period and come back to the neighborhood and
Yeah,
see what everyone thinks.
that sounds right. I'm also going to drop the website in the chat. There's a website. You can also get to it through the My Street. A lot of people are familiar with My Street, Salt Lake City's My Street page. You can get to the 800 East Neighborhood Byway. It's got the website embedded, or you can link to the website, and we'll keep that updated with information as it becomes available as we learn more. We're talking now about doing a pop-up installation. We don't know what yet, once spring hits, and have some engagement along with that. So that will all be on the website, and we can let you know when we're doing something like that, when we're doing some more engagement, so that you can advertise it and get people out there.
Jason, I guess you can see if questions come up. I did have a question myself. The pop-up installation, is that going to be an opportunity to just kind of engage with the community and ask more questions, or let them ask questions about this? Or is this bringing back a section of the...
We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but with the implementation at the time, we do hope to have some sort of community event as much as we can, and keep it safe outdoors, maybe some tabling where people can come by. But we hope to put something up that's more permanent than those signs that we had, something that isn't permanent at the time, but something that can be made permanent, to get an idea of what people want to see. So like I said, we're still in the initial planning stages of that. So we don't know exactly what that will be, but we hope to have people there and have its staff so we can answer questions.
Excellent.
I have a question.
Oh, Michael, go ahead.
So how realistic is it that you can actually make something like that permanent? Because I mean, it's cool that you do the survey and everybody likes it, but is it realistic to make it permanent?
I'm just gonna say, I went to a conference last year in Toronto, and they have a section that's really grid-like, like Salt Lake City is, and they had done the same thing, taking some streets, and they didn't have a lot of barriers saying this is a street that's reserved for bikes, but it was kind of known. And since it got a lot of use, there were certain streets that cars would just use and certain streets that the bikes would use. And seeing that in person, I really do think it is something that's feasible and something that can happen. With our grid, you have so many other options. I think it will work. I hope it does work. Just figuring out how.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, the hope with this is to incorporate enough kind of traffic calming elements that cars just wouldn't be able to travel fast enough down the street to make it uncomfortable for cyclists. And we're also looking at improving crossings, like across 17th South, 13th South, those sorts of areas where it's kind of sketchy for pedestrians and bikes to travel down 8th East and cross at those kind of major intersections. So not just the street itself, but hopefully making the entire corridor a really comfortable and safe experience.
I was just going to mention that when you're mentioning pop-ups, that's something that ELPCO residents might be familiar with from the Roundabout project now 2 or 3 years ago, where Salt Lake City Transportation used hay bales and orange cones to kind of recreate different demos of what the roundabout could look like. Before it was a roundabout, it used to be a 5-way intersection. So is that kind of what you're thinking about doing, using non-permanent materials to kind of shape the street or guide pedestrians and cars and bicycles in sort of new patterns?
Yes, exactly. And that pop-up was so valuable because the feedback the city got, I wasn't with the city at the time, but the feedback the city got before the pop-up changed dramatically after doing the pop-up. People's opinion changed dramatically after they saw what the roundabout could do and how it worked. And I love the roundabout. So, well, of course, I'm a transportation engineer, so I'm supposed to love roundabouts anyways, but I really love that one.
Any other questions?
It really helps us move from the kind of conceptual nature of taking an online survey full of words to actually seeing what it might look like on your street. So that's really the benefit of it.
I think the residents appreciate it too, in addition to the feedback they can provide. So, yeah. Other questions about 800 East Neighborhood Byway? How many folks took advantage of the safe and active streets last summer? Raise your hand if you took a spin or a walked your dog. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Just kept on going and going. It was kind of fun. So thanks for looking into this. Andrew, any follow-ups or sort of conclusions?
No, I do know there's a lot of concern about parking along there and that it doesn't go away. And the intention of this is not to get rid of the parking, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I know a lot of people raise that concern because probably 80% of the homes don't have garages and they all park on the street. So
yeah, no, we completely keep residential access. We'll be looking at whether anything we do is going to be too inconvenient for the residents. That's one of the reasons for the pop-ups. If we did do a half closure or something like that, if that was going to be too inconvenient, we'd learn that kind of thing from the pop-ups.
Excellent. That's all I've got.
Great. Well, thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Jenna and Laura, for telling us about this project. Really appreciate it. We'll watch to see what happens when the weather gets warmer and we all head outside again to enjoy our streets. We're going to jump. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to jump now to Tim Cosgrove from the Salt Lake City Mayor's office to give us an update about what's going on with the mayor and her initiatives and other projects going on. So thank you, Tim, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you all staying a little later tonight. I'm trying to remember where we left off from the last community council meeting last month, but as you know, the mayor had given the State of the City address January 25th, I believe it was. But part of achieving the mayor's vision was including forming the very first innovation department for the city. And this will help us to drive projects that make city government more nimble, efficient, and cohesive. She released that yesterday. This team is going to lead out in creating the culture of innovation in city government and helping our city to modernize business processes, standardize our approach to project management, and improve public transparency. She's done a lot with streamlining inefficiencies and promote the use of data to drive those decisions. She's asked Noel Walkingshaw, who's been a 23-year veteran with the city as a city employee, to be the group's first innovation officer. And his first major undertaking will be to overhaul the city's existing financial and human resources and payroll systems. I'm going to include a little short video that the mayor put together, about 5 minutes, in the link. And there was also a larger Facebook Live question and answer on that. I'll also put that in the link. That was yesterday as well, and you can learn more about that. But it's an exciting time because we actually get to work on the mayor's platform as opposed to be reactive on a lot of the things that we were challenged with within 2020. Was anybody able to link in on the Facebook Live question and answer for the innovation team yesterday? I just wondered.
I did, Tim, but that's me. I just do that stuff.
You live for this stuff, Jason. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for your support on that. Also, just to compliment Gina and Laura Handworker's efforts, the 2021 surface treatment projects are going to be kicking off with spring, and there's a lot of local streets in your community, our community, but ELPCO and Liberty Wells community that I wanted to make you aware of. And there's a link for that as well. I'll put that in the chat. But essentially, 200 east from 6 south to 1300 south, and 300 east from 5th south to 1300 south, and then Highland Drive from Warnock Avenue to the city line is online for putting that those surface street projects will be starting. And let me see if I can get that. Then the other one was let's see. Trying to find it here. Sorry, I'm having computer technical. There we go. Okay. The other one was I've been getting a lot of questions on the homeless services that we've been processing and providing throughout the city with the mayor's community commitment program. And I wanted to make sure that you had updates. We've created a new, we call it our homeless services dashboard. And that keeps, we have a GIS mapping system with all the encampments that are included throughout the city, and the priority list of where we're sending outreach teams and then trying to get persons experiencing homelessness to participate with the resources and the shelter that we have available. But we've been getting a lot of questions on that lately, and this dashboard, there's a great narrative with updated information, and they keep track of it. Every week it's updated. So I want to make sure you have that as well. And with that, are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Tim about the mayor's office or the work going on there? I was going to maybe post a question to everyone. Like when we had that big snowstorm, what, about a week ago, 12 inches of snow in Salt Lake City, I noticed the plows on my street pretty quick. By 8 or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they were out there. What was everyone else's experience with snow clearance that day? Anybody have any complaints, or how did you think the plow system worked?
I think I even have a...
No complaints is good, if that's the way it was. Wish they could have helped me with my driveway. But okay, definitely when you get a 12 feet or 12 inches of snow in a day, it tests things a bit. So it was nice to see that it worked. Any other questions for Tim? No? Okay. Tim, are there any parting thoughts?
I thought I had one more thing, but I'm not finding it. I can give you some links to the, let's see, you did get the links for that interview and the links for the snow plows. I have that. If you want to watch the snow plows coming through, we're headed for another storm Friday and Saturday. And you can actually get online with the link and see where the snow plow is at in your neighborhood. I actually have that right here.
That is a fun thing. They're GPS track snowplows, so you can actually watch them go through the city streets. It'd be kind of fun to actually give them names and, you know, place bets on when they're going to hit your street. But that's a whole nother level of internet interactivity. But yeah, we do have another storm coming. Thank you for posting that, Tim. Any questions? Any comments? Are we good? Okay. Tim, we talked earlier and you were going to work on trying to get Nicole Salazar from the Salt Lake City Commission on Police Equity and Reform. I misdid that name there, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Were you able to talk with her, or is that something that we can look forward to for our March meeting or a meeting coming up?
I was able to reach Nicole Salazar Hall, and she is our commissioner for the Human Rights Commission with Salt Lake City. She's also the co-chair on the Police Equity Commission. So she would love to come talk with East Liberty Park. I have her down, I think it was March 25th, if I got that right, at 7 p.m.
That's right, exactly a month from today. 28 days in February make that possible.
Invitation invite and CCU Jason to make sure everybody's on the same page, but she was happy to be asked and happy to come share all the efforts and work that they've been working on and communicating with the community, and give an update for the members of East Liberty Park.
That's fantastic. And you also mentioned that Mayor Mendenhall is starting to do the rounds on the virtual community council meetings, so we could work together to schedule the mayor coming to one of our meetings sometime this spring, I think. Is that right?
That's correct. She's actually, let's see, I think Liberty Wells has her coming March 15th, or I'm trying to think which date. Maybe it's March 10th. It's the second Wednesday, but she's trying to rotate again now that spring is here and make sure that that she gets out to every community council. So I'm happy to schedule that when a time is convenient for you, and have her come out and answer some questions and share some of her exciting innovation for the biohive and medical lab technologies that there's some really exciting things in addition to a lot of the projects that RDA and economic development have been working on coming up in the neighborhood with State Street.
Fantastic. And for Mayor Mendenhall, it'll be a bit like coming home, considering she lives in ELPCO and was a frequent guest at our community council member meetings as the District 5 council member. So we look forward to that, probably sometime in May or June, I think is what we're going to aim for. So.
Okay, thanks, Jason.
Great. All right, we've just got a couple of quick announcements, kind of new business to work on before we conclude. And of course, we do have for dessert the Pie Fight business profile video, which we'll hopefully be able to put at the end of this, although we'll also have it up on our social media page. I wanted to make one comment that we've gotten some questions from residents about what's going on with the public art in the roundabout. We talked about the 900 South Roundabout a bit earlier in terms of the pop-up displays that Salt Lake City Transportation has done. Well, it's built, and the next step is actually to install some public art. And I'm happy to say that the Salt Lake City Art Design Board has selected a finalist and an alternate that they have sent to the mayor's office. And they're awaiting her decision on that. And once that is done, then we'll be able to actually talk about it, describe it, and get the process started. I can't divulge what it's going to be. I was fortunate enough to actually sit in on the meeting where they were able to discuss it, but I will say it will make quite a splash. That's all I can say. But it'll be a very interesting public art display, I think, when if the first choice goes through, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to show you pictures and announce a little bit more, but we're abiding by the confidentiality that the Art Design Board asked us to do for that. The second thing we have to do is actually welcome 2 new members to the ELPCO board with our community approval. We changed our bylaws last fall to add at-large members to the ELPCO board. And the ELPCO board has done some interviews and selected 2 individuals that are here. Actually, you can see them right here on the video. Michael Alosi and Jonathan Falk are our candidates to become the at-large members of ELPCO. And I'll just give you a brief description, a little bit about them, what we've learned. Jonathan relocated to Salt Lake City from Los Angeles back in July of 2020. He's the associate director at the Utah Pride Center. And he's got a lot of experience in fundraising and marketing, event management, both, primarily with nonprofits. So we're really glad that Jonathan is here in Salt Lake and is interested in joining the board. And we also have Michael Olosi, who relocated to Salt Lake from Denver a year before in the summer of 2019. He served on the board of the San Rafael Residential Neighborhood Organization, which has about as long as the name as ELPCO, East Liberty Park Community Organization. Now is in downtown Denver, and they put on something called the San Rafael Palooza, which sounds a lot like the 9th and 9th Street Festival with bands and food trucks and vendors. So we're excited that Michael is interested in joining the board. And it's great that you guys are newer residents to Salt Lake City, because we do have a lot of people moving into the city, and we want to be able to capture what the needs and interests of folks who are newer to the city than people who have lived here for decades. So thank you for joining us for the meeting tonight. Appreciate it. Because we're kind of late on time, I'm not going to ask you to say too much, if that's all right. We'll just move on and do our community vote. And so what I just would ask is that if everyone could raise your hands or comment, do something to say like whether or not you'd like them to join the board. And actually we'll need a motion. We can do a joint motion. If someone can make a joint motion, then we can do our Robbie's Rules of Order to proceed. I will entertain a motion if someone will make one.
Jason, I'll put the motion forward to nominate Michael and Jonathan as at-large members for the ELPCO Community Council.
Great. Can I get a second?
We second.
Great. Thanks, Ann. Can I get a third? No, just kidding. We don't need one. All right. So we got a motion to welcome Michael and Jonathan as the at-large members of the ELPCO board. Thank you guys for being here. Let's have a vote. Everyone give a thumbs up, or you can actually, I think, do a little like hand thing at the bottom or in the chat. Whatever you can do would be great. Okay, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up.
And vote for ourselves?
You can't vote for yourself. Sorry, it's not quite that kind of democracy. But you can vote multiple times. That's the thing we do. No, but looks like we've got, I'm looking here, scanning, looks like we've got quite a few of the folks voting here. So I will call that a majority. Welcome to the board, and we look forward to having you contribute as we head on to new meetings in 2021. And of course, looking forward to the 9th and 9th Street Festival on September 18th this year. We hope we're able to have that and probably learn a lot from what happens with the Utah Pride Festival, Jonathan, as I know you guys are ramping that up right now, getting a lot of organizing. So thank you for volunteering and joining. And we are kind of building ELPCO into what we hope is a more sort of active and nimble organization in our community.
Awesome.
So we are done with our official business. I do have one more thing, and that is that Nancy Phillip and I did record an interview with the co-founder of Pie Fight, which is that new eatery in 9th and 9th. And if you are willing to stay, we can play that video right now, and you guys can see a little bit more about what goes into a place that makes hand pies and seems to be selling out of them every day and very successful. So let me start that video. If you wanted to tune out, well, this video will be available on our ELPCO Facebook page and YouTube a little bit later this evening. But let's get that video going. And let's see if I can share my screen. Share computer sound. I learned a lot last time in terms of doing this. Okay, so everyone should see this. Let's give it a whirl. Hi, welcome again to another episode of ELPCO Presents. We're joined tonight by Johnny Duncan from a new eatery located here in the 9th and 9th area called Pie Fight, which has got to be one of the coolest names for a new eatery in our location. And we're going to learn more about what Pie Fight is about, what they offer, and how they came to be here. Thank you, Johnny, for being here and telling us about your new business.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for inviting me and for all that you guys do for the local businesses here.
So when did you guys open? It's not been very long, has it?
No, we opened mid-November. So just a couple months.
Gotcha. And you're located in a pretty unique spot. Some might call it maybe the smallest the restaurant in the 9th and 9th area. Tell us about where you are. Once people know some of the neighboring establishments, I think they'll figure it out real quick.
Yeah, we are small. Some people have had a hard time finding us, but we are, if you're familiar with 9th and 9th, Public Kitchen, which has been around for years and everyone loves, is our next door neighbor. So we are the building to the east of Public Kitchen. We share a building with Tomorrow's House Furniture, a vintage furniture shop. And we also have another partner business in this building, Harvey's Skill Shop.
Got it. I think that will place it very well for ELPCO residents. And if not, you guys have a neon sign, don't you, right outside your spot?
Yeah, so it's really easy to catch us at night because we have a red neon sign that says Pie Fight with our logo there. Little trickier in the daytime. We put out, usually like a sign out in the grass, points people to us. But if you look at the building that we're in, you've got to see the deck. There's a deck patio out front, and you walk up that patio, and you're going to see our walk-up window. So, like Jason, like you said, it's very small. There's no indoor seating. There's no indoor area open to the public at all. Which we'd actually planned this way before the pandemic ever hit. My partner Michael and I had this idea. It was like almost like very end of 2019, first part of 2020 that we had this idea that, hey, we could take some of the existing retail space that we have here, partition off an area and use an existing window that we had to create kind of this like walk-up window concept. And so that's really how it was born. And our timeline with construction and building permits with the city took a long time to get where we are, just to get through that process. By the time we were ready to open, it was, we were deep into this pandemic, like I said, back in November. But I don't know, I guess the concept, this walk-up window concept kind of worked out because it created a space where people can just, like you don't have to go indoors, you don't have to touch anybody. We don't take any cash as a business. So it just made like the whole, distancing thing a lot easier.
One way I've spotted your business is the line that forms outside every day when you open up, stretching along that deck, even sometimes going down onto the sidewalk. Could you tell us a little bit about what you offer that makes people line up even a couple of minutes before you open up to make sure they get what Pie Fight serves?
Yeah. So we do hand pies, which a lot of people are kind of confused when I throw out this name, this idea of a hand pie. But if you think back to like Hostess used to make hand pies they sold in the grocery store, and I grew up loving them. They're just like these little kind of like pie turnovers. They're handheld. I think like McDonald's does another one that's just like the same kind of form. But we looked at kind of what had been done before and thought this would be really cool to make like a high quality like gourmet pie and do it with the hand pie. So that it's like, one, it's like single serve, two, it's like mobile and you can just come by, grab it, it's easy. Different than, buying a full pie that you've got to find some people to share it with. This is just like quick grab, and we sell them by the box, we sell them single. Yeah.
Cool. Nancy, did you have a question for Johnny?
Well, I did. I mean, first of all, I have a comment. I just wanted to say how interesting your concept is and how perfect it was for a pandemic. When other restaurants are struggling to figure out how to get customers and serve customers, you guys just, the concept itself just fills that void. So kudos to you and your partner for delivering on that. I was going to ask you though, about your hand pies. So I've had them, they're fantastic, but for people that are listening, they may not know what flavors you have and the price points for all of that. And I always like our community to know how reasonable prices are for various things in this area. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I couldn't really talk too much in detail about our product without mentioning our third partner. I mentioned my partner, Michael, who he and I originally came up with this idea, but we brought on a third partner, Sarah, who she's just like a true artist when it comes to baking. So we kind of explained, Michael and I, we don't have, much experience baking at all. So we explained to her the idea, and she just kind of whipped together these pies. And so each month we have, right now we're doing 5 flavors per month. We hope to expand the number of flavors we have per month, but we rotate right now. So every month we have a few that return and a few that we try out new. So far since launch, we've kept blueberry lemon. That's been one of our most popular ones. We launched with that flavor. We also launched with the apple crumble. People just really love those 2 pies. I'd say like most days, those are the 2 that sell out the fastest. This month in February, we also have a classic cherry pie. We did it in honor of Valentine's, so it has a cute little heart on the top of it. We also do a coconut macaroon. It's kind of a cool, unique pie flavor. And the last one we do is pear brownie. Pear brownie we did before, we brought back. It's also a unique flavor. It's kind of like a French pairing that's like chocolate pear kind of thing that the people that like it, we have like a strong following. That the people that are into it are really into that one. Nancy, you asked about price point. So each pie that we sell, regardless of flavor, it's all the same price. So each pie is $6. Yeah.
Cool. And could you describe the texture of what these pies are like? And I can think of pie of kind of being warm on the inside and kind of crusty on the outside. Can you tell us a little bit about what that, I guess, the eating experience is like for those who haven't tried it?
Cool. Jason, I'll answer your question, then I'll answer Nancy's question next. Yeah, so we feel like the key ingredient to a pie is the crust. And so every crust that we make is designed to be as flaky as we can get it. They're buttery. They're definitely made with butter and designed to be flavorful. We like the hand pie format because you really can design this like little dessert that has like the perfect ratio of crust to filling for every bite. That was one of the things we were super excited about as we built this thing. And Nancy, you asked what my favorite flavor is. I'm actually one of the pear brownie people. I really love that flavor.
Do you take suggestions for people giving you some ideas of different combinations
you sound like
that you might try out?
You sound like you got a favorite pie flavor, Jason.
Well, I could go experimental. I don't know if anybody else would like it, but I mean it seems like you have a real interactive experience with many of your customers on Instagram and some of your other social media feeds. Is that something that you strive to do from the beginning to really kind of learn from your customers and be a part of the community?
Yeah. Actually, from the get-go, we had this idea that we could build like a dessert shop, kind of a walk-up window. We thought, oh, that's so cool, and we really felt like that's something that could just fit into the neighborhood so well. And one of the things that we really thought about when we thought about, well, what's the brand and what's the thing that we make? We really just kind of like thought, well, we should just take inspiration from 9th and 9th itself. It's such a great neighborhood. It's one of those unique neighborhoods, like I think in the country. And so we thought, well, what is it that needs to live here? And that was a lot of just kind of like the lens for the brainstorms that we had that kind of led us to this thing. You mentioned like interaction with the people, that come to our window and that order our pies. we just found like early on, like the first weekend we opened on a Friday, and then we were back open again the next day on Saturday, and we were so shocked to see like a lot of the same people coming back the next day that it just became like such a natural like conversation. We have like these customers that still like they're there 4 or 5, 6, 7 days a week. In some cases, some of our our diamond medallion customers, that like it's just great. Like people like what we've done, and we just want to be like good back to these people that are supporting us. Like you said, it's a tough time to be a business, to be a small business. It's a tough time to open a small business. So we've just been so grateful that Salt Lake is such a supportive market, and that we just happen to be in a neighborhood where people are just like interested in supporting, new unique things, and that people like what we're doing. We are just kind of like awe-inspired by, some of these people that just like what we do.
It sure does seem to be a good fit if you've got people showing up every day, that's for sure. Nancy, did you have another question for Johnny?
No, I'm good. I really appreciate the explanation of those pies. Now I need to go down and get another one. But I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that by sharing a little bit more about your venue and your location, that we can generate some interest and enhance your customers.
Thanks so much.
And we can finish off with just some of those details to make sure people know when and how to find you. Can you tell us a bit about the days of the week that you're open, your hours, and any website or a place that people even can order ahead so they can just show up and pick up an order?
Yeah. So we are open 7 days a week. We open at 1 p.m. and we're usually open till about 8 p.m. There's a few exceptions. Sometimes on Saturday, Sunday, Friday, demand gets so high that we have sold out. We try to keep posted on social media, whether we're selling out or not, if you check our Instagram. The other way, like you mentioned, to check, what we have available and to order ahead is just go to our website. So if you go to thepiefight.com and click on order online, you can go through the order process right there. We box them up for you. You get a text saying your order's ready, and you can just show up to our window and give us your name, and we'll hand you your box.
Fantastic. That sounds very appetizing and easy to do. Well, thanks, Johnny, for talking to us and introducing your business to the ELPCO community. Welcome to 9th and 9th. Fantastic edition. It's going to be really neat to see, people learn about your business and show up and start eating more pie. I mean, hey, that's one way to beat a pandemic, right?
Right.
That's right.
Hey, thanks again, Johnny. Really nice talking with you.
Thanks for all you guys do. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay.
Bye.